Hello, Christopher.
Hi, Agata.
Let's today discuss about a very important topic. I would say basic one for for implementing the products from products process or even services from the suppliers into our final product. So let's discuss about product approval process. Okay, I'm giving you the voice.
Yeah, certainly. So in Charge, we've adopted the AIAG 4th edition manual, obviously with some customer-specific versions of that. But the basic foundation is we use that method. So for people or viewers that you may not be aware of what that is, essentially there are 19 elements within that, give or take. But that needs to be used for compliance. It has a level system or a tier system from level 1 to level 5. Charge has the same sort of criteria. We cascade those requirements in our supplier quality manual. So during the RFQ phase or during the nomination, we will send them a technical file, and there's several technical files we use. Just to briefly go over them, one is the cost elements of it, one is the terms and conditions or the purchasing agreement from a contractual perspective. One is a technical file, which is for engineering. So this might be product design specifications and so on. And then finally, we have something called a quality file. In that quality file, we share the information. We tell them what our manual is and what the templates or documentation we will use. In some cases, suppliers need to use the mandatory documents that Charge sent to the suppliers because the information needs to be very clear, very precise. And in some cases, control plans, for example, some suppliers can leave certain information out on the control plan, which is critical to us as a customer. So we need to have that in there. Same for the FMEA. So certain documents, we will tell them you need to use this format. Some suppliers may have issue with this, but it needs to be done because it's a customer-specific requirement. So we do that from an approval perspective. We will use the part submission warrant cover sheet to do the final approval. The main difference for us versus other OEMs is that interim approval gives the supplier permission to ship and manufacture at a certain level, at a certain point in time with a certain quantity. Some customers will say you can have a PSW or a cover sheet signed and allow it to ship, but they can manufacture as many parts as they like. They could make 10 million parts sitting, but they could, in theory, if they find a problem, there could be 10 million no good. What I've imposed on the supply chain through the supplier quality manual and this best practice and lessons learned from what I've had from other companies is to put the requirement that suppliers cannot ship or manufacture products until they have a part submission warrant signed, either interim with conditions or full. So that's typically the process that we do for approving products with suppliers.
Mm-hmm. Let me emphasize here when we are talking about product approval process that IATF is not saying specifically that you have to follow PPAP AIG organization. Yes, IATF is very general in this regard. There has to be only a process for manufacturing approval process. Yes, and it's all. Let's remember that the German market also refers to, for instance, VDA 2, called PPF, also. And some OEMs, definitely those from the German market, would require us to use that process. Okay. Of course, PPAP needs to be done when we introduce a new piece. But however, we need to remember that there are a lot of other situations where we have to submit the PPAP and also when we have to notify. Sometimes there are small things we think that they are small things, like we moved our production line 20 centimeters, one machine, yes, 20 centimeters. What is this? Nothing. Why to do PPAP? So unfortunately, we need to do this, yes. And what I'm saying, there is no this awareness that some small changes in our processes may have a big impact on the quality later. Yes, that's why we have this process of approving the products. Yes, before we will receive them. At Charge Cars, do you define the situations when you would like to have a PPAP?
Yes, we do. So again, best practice from what I've had from previous companies. The Japanese background, especially from an APQP perspective and IATF requirements, especially when it comes to the APQP, is to define risk matrices. So, for example, we will have a change management, and if the change is one operator that's off work sick, No, I don't need to know about that as a customer. And that it sounds like it's common sense, but you do have to say situations and case studies and explain to suppliers examples where you would and where you wouldn't. If you suddenly change from 2 shifts, you run a day shift in the morning and you run a late shift and you add a third shift, yes, you need to tell me as a customer. And the reason you need to tell me as a customer is because how do I know if that third shift is trained? How do I know if they know how to
Mhm,
run the production line or if they know the quality requirements or any of these
mhm,
things? So some suppliers have said, no, we don't need to do that. But you do. You do need to tell us because it's a risk. As you said in your example, moving a production line by 20 centimeters can disrupt all of your poke-yoke systems. It can stop the process working properly. Your process and parameters can change. And suddenly you have all your parts being produced no good. And you think, why? It's always best, if in doubt, to tell the customer. If you're going to do it, always send a message and say, we're looking to do this. If it's not a part of regular maintenance and it's not a part of the original control plan agreed in terms of your process parameters and so on, if you suddenly decide to get a new tool, even if that tool is identical to the original one, you still need to tell your customer. So we have a change matrix, and it has based on the tier levels, where they should tell the customer and pretty much where they shouldn't. The best examples I would say in my past experiences, one part was moved from one country to another and it didn't consider the training element and the manual assembly of this component, and it completely ruined the parts. The parts couldn't be used and it stopped the production line. And as you can imagine, in the car
mhm.
manufacturing world, time is money, and every minute that passes, that's obviously money that's being lost. So you need to tell the customer, if in doubt. I like to use something which is called a SLAM or stop call wait procedure, where if in doubt you put your hand up like an operator, same thing, and you ask the customer, is this okay, before you make the change.
Mm, this was a big example what you
Yeah.
mentioned. My imagination is not so big, I would say.
Yeah, mine unfortunately are real life examples that I've lived them as quality engineers and as senior management. They happen, unfortunately. It's not if, but when they are going to happen. It's really important to have that communication with your customer because liabilities are
Mhm,
clear and all of the costs
mhm,
incurred will be passed on to the supply chain. So
exactly. Okay, Christopher, uh, anything else?
in general, in terms of the information passed to suppliers, again, that could be in the contract itself. It's really important to, especially part of the commercial negotiation process, is to specify. I would advise suppliers typically not to, and OEMs, not to sit and wait to share information. I think it's best to try and put everything as much as possible in a RACI or a RASIC, who is responsible, accountable, informed, and so on. Having that defined in certain situations is really important, especially on cascading information to your sub-suppliers. So in charge, the tier one is responsible for cascading all of our requirements to their tier ends. Tier 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however far down in the chain, it is their responsibility. I'm sure in future topics we'll look at free issue parts versus directed buy and so on, or directed source. But that information is very clear. It's really important upfront to get that in writing about who is responsible for what.
So, to summarize, dear suppliers, please consider product approval process as your confirmation that you understand all the requirements, you meet these requirements, and what's more, that you can confirm the amounts you will produce, yes, for your customer. Okay, thank you very much, Christopher. Let's meet in another episode. My proposal is that we would talk about the information for external providers. In other words, what we shall say to supplier as a requirements. Thank you.